one of my biggest fears from when I was young, when I was married, which I was for 20 years, was basically being alone and living under a bridge. I used to say that to myself all the time. And now I can say that having faced my fear, I love being alone. I didn't end up under a bridge. My life was even better than what I ever thought. So I just wanted to talk some thoughts about maybe if you feel like that, if you're scared of the future, if you are unsure or you're scared, if you're in a situation where you may be in an abusive relationship or things like that, then, you are scared of what might happen if you leave that situation. But I'm just here to sort of talk about what happened to me and, show you that there's positive things that can happen from that. So basically, I was raised as a Catholic. Anyone that's raised in an organised religion is always, at least my understanding, I know there's other religions that are the same as my experience, where you're conditioned, and including society, to get married, have children, and then, stay with your partner through thick and thin regardless, and no matter what, you have to stick to it. So I really believe that. I didn't believe in divorce. I didn't believe in, no. And also, I had children. I had 3 children. And the first time my ex-husband came to me, we were married at the time, and the kids were little, and said, I can't imagine myself being committed to you. And I'm thinking, well, hang on. How could you be married and not be committed? We have 3 children. I just didn't understand it. I realise now that it's probably more just, we just didn't have a meeting of minds or similar values. But being in my 20s, well, I was probably early 30s then, honestly, you don't even think, you just think everyone's like you because you haven't got life experience. And I certainly didn't have a lot of relationship experience. So I sort of went through a lot of stress, I cried and blah, blah, blah. And ultimately I stayed because I believed that the children should have their father. And also I was really worried about money. And I think that was probably the biggest thing. The thing that held me there was because of the money. I was really, the first time that he did it, I wasn't working. But I came to a point where he actually left and came back the next day. So I'm going through this just to explain a bit of the backstory. But essentially, later on, probably in my 30s or 40s, I was so scared. I was scared of, it was all came down to money. I just thought, how will I survive? We had our own financial problems. And and ultimately he decided, like we'd been married for 20 years, and he decided that he wanted to end it because the kids were, like over 15. And I think the circumstances had changed, and I think for him that was probably it just was an easier, because at that point we're moving from one place to another. I was in my place, he was in another state. And so we both had a home. I was working at that point. I didn't have a really high income, which is probably why I was worried about it. But when he came and he said that, I accepted it because I wasn't going to go through it all over again. And I just thought, as the song says, fool me once, shame on you, but fool me twice, shame on me. So I faced that fear. I had no choice anyway. And I couldn't believe it. I was actually better off, financially even, once he left. Because, for a start, because I was making my own financial decisions, and which weren't the same as his. And I found that I managed it really well. I think I didn't trust myself. I think I had internalized misogyny, which is all the rage now, but which I actually think I did. I thought because he was the man that he could handle it well, even though I'm educated, I'm smart, I made lots of the decisions. And I realised that, I just realised that I'd actually had 4 children and now I had 3. And everything was so much easier. Now, don't get me wrong. The first year or so, I was singing to all of the, like the empowerment songs. I was absolutely devastated. But at the same time, I had made up my mind that I was not going to take him back. Because, like how many times can you do that? Also, I went and spoke to his father, who was a great man and who sadly was in a nursing home at that point. My father had actually died the same year my ex-husband left. And I went and saw him and he said to me, just don't go to Melbourne and don't take him back. And I'm going, but no one else is going to care for him the way I do. I cook, I clean, all the usual. And he goes, yes, he'll find someone else. And he did, which is fine. So I was worried about the money, but then it turned out I didn't need to be. Not only that, but I realised that when I actually got married, like I really liked a big tall man, and he is a big tall man. He's he feels safe. But I suddenly realised as I was going through, going through life with the family, that I was the one that was sort of protecting the family and doing things, because obviously I realised we lived on acreage and I was literally doing everything inside and out of the house. So that was fantastic. And you know what, I could do it. I actually could do it. I could tie down loads in the trailer because we did have horses. I could take stuff to the tip. I could, mow the lawn by hand, 2 acres. There was 5 acres, but I was mowing 2 acres with a hand mower. And it wasn't self-propelled. So I could do all that, So that was amazing. So basically, he left and then I was there. We were still living in the same house. Eventually, I just moved because it wasn't practical. The kids were needing, there was no public transport and I was having to drive them everywhere and they wanted to be independent. So I just moved to a place in a suburb where they could just walk to the bus stop and they could do what they needed to. But it realised that was kind of a blockage in my life. I've got some points here. So let me have a look at this. When I think about it, I've just taken some notes down there. So there's a few things. What were the blockages? Fear of abandonment. I had such a fear of abandonment. And I don't know why. I think it does go back to childhood, of not feeling safe. I was a very good girl. I was a peacemaker. But that's just because you don't want, the worst thing is, that you don't want to, I don't know. Anyway, fear of being unsupported, fear of being unseen or unloved. So all of that was in my nervous system. It wasn't logical, it just was how I felt. But I'm just looking at this. Here's some roles of societal conditioning. So, and especially for women, not so much for men, that being alone equals failure. No one wants to really know what's happening. Like if you're struggling or if you could fail in our society, like we don't really talk about it very much. And by that I mean like just say, this didn't happen to me, but you lose your job or whatever. Like, you think, oh, I failed. Or you just don't like it. You've gotten a new job and you don't like it. And you think, what's wrong with me? Well, it's not a match. Like if you go on Tinder, you swipe right and you go out with someone and it doesn't work out, it's not a match. So that's all good. So the life lesson was about fear. So I realised I've got things here. A deep need for safety. Like we all need to feel safe. Wanting to belong and, like I love my husband, but he did actually kill her right at the end. He said some things which made me, which just, you know, when he said he didn't care how I felt about things, and it just went like that. It was just wild. But anyway, but I've learned from that life can be fantastic. Since then, I've gone to university. I imported horse floats. I've had a complete career change with the university. I got into I was in sales, and then I got into more of a community type of role. I'm now in a government role, and because this is where I'm into manifestation. But, you know, it's easy to feel stuck. I felt stuck in the marriage because I thought that he, you know, that I needed him, that he couldn't be without me, and that just wasn't true. That was really not true. And that maybe that in some way I couldn't be without him, but that also wasn't true. I was perfectly fine. My trust was completely gone. But you just realise that societal conditioning. But you know what? The thing I realised, you're going to be okay. And I had a very negative mindset. And as soon as the marriage ended, I then decided purposefully to embrace a, positive mindset, have an attitude of gratitude. And I actually did that. And I started journaling. There's other things that I did, which I'll talk about in another video. But honestly, my life is fantastic. I'll just show you right now. I'm on a houseboat. This is my houseboat. And I love my houseboat. Down there, see down there. And somewhere here is my cat, is Yowie, my cat. Not sure where he is. But he's around somewhere. And I love him. I love being alone. I don't want anyone to live in my boat with me. I want to be independent, do my own thing. I don't want to compromise with anybody at all. You know, and they always say, oh, you just have to compromise. No, I don't compromise. If I want to get something, I get it. If I don't, I don't. If I don't want to do something, I don't do it. I love my job. I feel very blessed to have it. Doing something that I love. I work with people who I love. I have a family who I love. I have my 3 adult daughters who are amazing, and my brother who I've reconnected with after my mother's passing. It's fantastic. I feel loved and supported. So anyway, my message is you can do it. You know, if you're scared, if you're stuck somewhere and you're just really worried, you know what? There's definitely life after that. You can do it. I have faith in you. I know if I did it, you can. And I know everyone says that, but seriously, we're all just people. And sometimes it just needs to be a decision, but it's just overcoming that fear. I was forced into it because I might potentially still be with him, but I would have been a shell of a human being. So have a lovely day, and I will speak later.